One of the things about Sherbet is Sherbet was born out of a desire to just ensure that, you know, sometimes you go to the store and you're walking through the aisles and you're looking for natural skincare and you read the ingredient list and you read things that you can't eat. So it's like, how is it really natural if I can't eat it? So one of the things we Sherbet is we wanted to ensure that all the ingredients we use are things that you can eat. Like, if you happen to spill your Sherbet into your frying pan, you can fry your egg with it.
Wow.
Especially the scented one, except you want your egg smelling like fragrance. But the fragrance items are only 1% fragrance, so it's like, okay, for those who want that fragrance. But the whole idea was really to ensure that we were transparent with our ingredients, 100% natural, as much as we could.
Yeah.
And then throwing a few fragrance options as well. So that's sort of the vision behind Sherbet, ingredients you can eat. So we want to take a moment to just show you all the different products available through Sherbet. I'll start off with this one. So here we have our baby-friendly package, and it's something that we put together with a lot of love and thoughtfulness to ensure that everything here is especially thought of to welcome the little one. Quite a number of items in here that's been specially thought of to welcome a newborn baby into the world. We have the pacifier, because we know babies always losing their pacifier, just to ensure it stays on. We have our 100% cotton blanket that of course is bear themed to go with our Sherbet brand. Super smooth. I wish you could feel the texture. We have the Rasso, which is, you know, every baby loves to play with these. And then I'm going to highlight the specific skincare products that we have in the box. We have the whipped body butter. So we know that most times shea butter is great for baby's skins. It keeps the moisture sealed in. It's great for a diaper cream, great for a body cream. But one of the things is the consistency is usually really hard. So one of the things we ensured with our unscented body butter for babies is the consistency, and I'll show you what it looks like. So super soft, 100% shea butter, and it's super smooth to apply to the skin. So and we have the Sherbet whipped hair butter. So we have two variants. We have the one with tea tree oil, and we have the variants without tea tree oil, because depending on the age of the baby, some moms may not want the ones with tea tree oil. That's why we have two different variants. Similar consistency, very smooth, very soft touch. It's smooth, smells great, and then you can apply it on the hair as needed. First size shea butter for the mom, which is scented chocolate option. We have a few other options that could be included, the sugar cookie, as well as the vanilla option, but it's basically one that's easy to be thrown in the purse, just to ensure that mom's hand stays moisturized throughout. And then last but not least, we have our black soap, which is 100% natural as well. It has just 3 ingredients. It has honey, black soap, and aloe vera juice, which makes it great for baby and also super natural as well. I have a little welcome card and a few other things that are in here that you get to find out when you order a box. So moving on to the other products we have, this can be used across board. Most people like it specifically for massages because of the lavender in it. So lavender is known for its relaxing benefits. It helps soothe like any stress. Most times when you go to the masseuse, they're using like lavender infused items. So that's the whole idea with, like, it's great for date nights, it's great for a self-care night, but it could be used at any time, every day if desired. So that's the lavender infused body oil. It comes in some of our gift boxes, but it's also sold by itself. Currently comes in 2 sizes, the 80 ml as well as the 100 ml.
And guys, you want to be getting the larger size, because trust me, you'll be so addicted when you start to use it. The smell is heavenly. I love how it feels on the body. Like, I'm saying this because I've used this, guys. So trust me, this is not just me saying it, it's me saying how it feels, because when I rub it on the skin, it just like absorbs and it makes it shiny, especially when you're doing photo shoot, guys. I find that when I'm doing photo shoots and I slap this on, like I'm popping, shining, you get all the experiences that you've had. You've been in entrepreneurship for about 7 years, and then also setting up a business in Canada. I think Sherbet is about over a year right now, right? Yeah. Fantastic. So what would you say you would do differently if given the chance to set up another business here in Canada, and also for those who would be looking to toe that line? What were the mistakes, or I won't call it mistakes, what was your learning curve, or maybe learnings you know, that probably happened, and you'd be like, maybe I shouldn't have done that?
Yeah, it's a good question.
All your questions are good. So I'll say the big one for me right now, and I'll talk about the big one for me right now is setting up your business to be ready for scale.
Right.
From the beginning, when I set up ShareBear, I always had it at the back of my mind that this business is not scalable based off of me having a 9 to 5 and making the products myself. But then I didn't let that stop me. And I don't regret it, but to Chi's point, what did I learn from that experience? It was okay, I needed to sort of figure out a plan to get it ready for scale. So for me, it's almost 2 years in, or about 2 years in actually. And I don't think it's almost there. I've put certain things in place that it's getting me ready for scale. Unfortunately, this is one of the things that I'm not so happy about. If you go on my Instagram page, you might not see a lot of activity there at the moment, because that's one of the things I'm trying to work on at the moment, to say, okay, how do I get it ready for scale? I have shied away from marketing as much as I would like, because I'm okay, if I put all these things out there, even without, most of the marketing for ShareBear has been organic, and the product speaks for itself. So I've gotten a lot of sales from repeat customers where someone tried it once and the same people just keep coming back, and that's been great. That's a testament to the quality of the product. So in preparing to be ready for scale, it's I don't want to just scale and lose that. I don't want to lose that. I want to ensure that everyone has access to that same quality. So what processes can I put in place? What checks can I put in place? What do I need to do to make that sustainable? So that's one thing I would say. I've missed out on different opportunities to scale. To scale, when I say scale, I mean online marketing. But what I have done, so with learning curves and learning and saying, okay, not just kicking yourself and say, well, my business, I can't make as much for many people, so what should I do? Is I have leveraged pop-up markets. I love pop-up markets because what that enables me to do is I know, okay, I have a pop-up market coming up in 4 weeks. What are the things I want to take to that pop-up market? And then I plan my production, because it's still me, right? I plan my production to say, okay, I'm going to make 20 jars of this scent, 20 jars of this scent. So I'm going to sort of plan, okay, throughout the week and the weekends leading up to that event to batch produce and then get it in front of more eyes. But then the learning curve there is to build on that momentum. So I'm telling you, honestly, these are things I've learned through my own journey. So I'm being honest, so people can learn from that. It's building on that momentum. I've gone to this pop-up market. I've gotten over 50 people buying ShareBear on the spot. Those are people that can potentially be return customers. If I can find ways to marketing, which is not my area, it's cheese, but it's okay, how do I keep them coming back? What coupon code can I give them on the spot? Okay, if I give them the coupon code and they come back, can I keep up with that demand? How is that sustained over time? So that's a big piece of that. What other challenge have I faced? I would say, so marketing as well. I'm very creative. Well, let me say that with a pinch of salt.
No, you are. Of course, we all are.
I enjoy these things. Canva is my best friend. Right from time, I've been using Canva for over 10 years. I love it. So I'm able to create all these posters, do this, do that. But then it's still a one-man show, right? So, but what I have learned from that, so sometimes I get I'm too tired. I still have a family. My family is still my priority. It's okay, what kind of building in automation, automating some of the things, getting a part-time staff, which I've done a few times. I've gotten some part-time staff that will support me for a period of time. I have to tell them, okay, here's what you do, but also getting the right person who's also able to take initiative. But that helps, getting someone support. But that learning curve for me has been okay, running a one-man show. A one-man show is not sustainable at all. So starting early on, say, okay, this is my business plan, and it doesn't have to be as detailed as your elaborate business plan, but okay, here's my business. I'm going to set it up in this month. I'll try and run it. These are all the things I'm going to do in the first 3 months. By the 4th month, I would consider bringing in someone to support with this area. And you can tell in that first 3 months, okay, here, this is not my strength. My strength is this, so I'll spend more time here. How can I bring someone in this area? So that's something I've learned, that you can do all things, but you shouldn't do all things. That's what I tell myself. Oh, I can do it now. I can create a poster. I can post on Instagram. I can post on Facebook. Yeah, you can, but do I really want to do all things? And that has been an interesting learning for me in my personal journey, from June last year till now. And it's something that I'll probably say that at the end as one of my pattern advice. But so those two, I would say, and I don't know if there's a way to prevent it in your business journey, you will meet people that talk a big game. You'll meet people that would promise you heaven and earth, but they may not always come through with it. But I would say it's very important to be diplomatic in business. Try not to make enemies. Try to like not burn bridges, because you never know where you meet the person in the future. And that's something that I used in my corporate world, that I've used in my business world as well. Sometimes, you know, people don't live up to what they've said they will do. But how do you sort of manage the situation in a way that the bridge isn't burnt, if possible? There are certain times that it might be too difficult to do that, but you know, if possible. So
and I think it boils down to also managing your expectations of people as well, because obviously these people, I mean, let's talk about even hires, right? When you hire someone, they obviously don't have a stake in the business. You know how when we're, you know, some people could be working for companies and they make this statement, what is on my father's company? I can't come and kill myself. You know, that kind of statement. Rest assured, people are going to be making that when they're working for you, right? If they don't have a stake, if they don't, I mean, if they're seeing it as a money-making strategy, it's them just coming, do what they need to do, not really going above and beyond, right? So it's you just managing your expectation in terms of, okay, nobody's going to run my business as much as I would, or put in as much effort as you would. So it's like, okay, yes, I'm going to hire help, but obviously not looking for someone to come and be like the managing director, or maybe work under minimal supervision and all of that good stuff. It's just knowing that, yes, people would promise, people would say, oh, I can do this and do that, and then when you hire them, they end up, you know, you're probably even walking them through everything. So it's really just managing the expectations and continuing to remind yourself that this is your business and no one can run it as passionately or as good as you would, right? So it's a great point that you make there. And I think even this managing expectations cuts across, whether friendship, marriage, everything else. It's
everything
really,
in life.
Exactly. Just manage your expectations and you'll be good. But I love the fact that you pointed out about not burning bridges, because with successfully managing a business, I think it also the network you keep and the network you build up on actually plays a pivotal role in, you know, successfully like scaling up as well. So don't burn bridges, guys. Okay, so I mean, God, I feel like we can stay on that topic for a long time, but let's just, you know, let's just move on. So I want to talk a little bit about tax.
Okay.
I know in Canada you can't talk about business or even company or even working without tax. Right? We know all these complaints about, hey, it's Canada's tax is crazy. I mean, yada, yada, yada. So what are the tax implications with small to medium enterprise in Canada? Like, does it, so for instance, if you have a small business, does it mean the taxes should be small? If you have a medium, does it mean like, is it still the same kind of approach where the higher the revenue, the higher the tax? Or is it all pegged under small to medium, irrespective of whatever revenue that is? Should those who are looking to toe the line be very careful about taxes? What would you also like? Do we have to file taxes? And if we do, like, you know, what's that written? Like, what's like the general sort of expectation with SMEs in Canada?
Before I go into this, if anybody here is a small business accountant or tax consultant, please put comments on Chi's video.
I know, right? Please, yes, absolutely. By the way, this is through the lens of her experience. She's in nowhere a tax expert. I'm going to put a disclaimer in the comment section, by the way. So, and
I'm also in search of one too.
Oh, yeah.
But, so from my personal experience, so at the start when I talked about business, setting up your business as sole proprietorship versus setting up as an incorporation, has heavy implications when it comes to taxes as well. So setting up as a sole proprietorship, what that means is that you and your business are one entity. So if you're owing taxes, your business owing taxes, basically you file your taxes for your business along with you. So when you're listing out your income as an individual, you list your corporate income, you list your business income as part of that, and then the cost as well will then be managed. There are pros to it. If you're like still a one-man show, you don't have a lot of like, you're not paying anybody, it's not as complicated. It's easier when it's done that way. The government's also quite considering the sense that as a small business or as a sole proprietorship, if you're making a loss, they consider that in your tax returns. So something to also keep in mind. And also your costs, when you're listing out your costs, like sometimes business owners don't know this, but you have to consider, okay, the fuel that I'm using to go and buy my supplies. So keeping track of all those things come a long way when you're filing your taxes. My first year, I wasn't as thorough. I didn't have as many, I didn't list all the different, so keeping track, and there's so many different applications that can help with that. But even just normal in your notes application on your phone, just being very organized with it. Keeping track of the fuel that you go on places that are linked to your business. If your business is in your house, the portion of space that you use, you can, deduce the space that is allocated to your business. So in my business, an example, I have a section in my house that's my workshop. The mortgage, like part of that payment, is also considered as part of my cost, like a portion of that. So there are different things to like think through with that. But the main point about sole proprietorship is the fact that you and your business are one entity, which means that also on the flip side of that, the liability of your business is your liability. So if someone sues your business, they are suing you as an individual. It's not separate entities, which is a high risk for an entrepreneur. So hence the benefit of an incorporation. An incorporation is considered a separate entity from you. You have a board, you are an employee of your incorporation. Anyone else, you can have like different people, and it's clearer when it comes to cost allocation as well. It's also clearer when it comes to like taxes as well being filed for that entity versus you.
Therefore, you're not liable.
You're not liable. If there's any legal anything, it's the entity, the incorporation that is liable, not you as an individual. So it's always good. It's a lawyer would always tell you this. Always separate you as an individual from any business that you own. Even with people who contract services, so contract staff, most of they are set up as incorporations as well, and then pay themselves from that. Their car, comes out from that. All the different costs is a lot clearer to do. That's one piece when it comes to taxes. The second thing, when it comes to charging your customers taxes, there's a threshold you have to meet from like a profit standpoint within a period of time for you to be eligible to charge your customers taxes, to remit certain taxes. So also something to keep in mind. Sometimes people are worried that, oh my god, I have to remit this. The government is also very considerate in knowing that most businesses, when they're very young, like if they tax them heavily, for as opposed to some other places I will not mention, but if we tax them heavily, it has an impact on their business. So there are certain milestones you have to meet before you're charged taxes as a business as well. So that's something else to keep in mind. So I'll say that was also something I learned at the start that really helped me, and also deciding that I had to meet certain threshold. I'm like, okay, so it's not as daunting as I thought. And then the second piece was just the sole proprietorship and incorporation. With my business, I got to a stage where I'm like, okay, I think I want to separate that liability. So just consider your businesses, food businesses as well. I would say separate your liability. There are quite a number of them. So,
and maybe just guys as a follow up, and that was like super clear in terms of knowing what sort of business you're going into and knowing the risk level. That would also help you deciding whether or not you go for sole proprietorship or you go for an income, right? So for instance, if you're in a food business, my dear, separate it too, because there's a higher chance of it could be food poisoning, it could be quality, whatever that is, it could be audit issues. So there's a higher chance of you actually getting sued. So you definitely want to be sure you're separating that, right? If you're looking at I don't know what else could be, maybe production. If you're doing marketing as an actual business, I mean, what are the odds, right? So it's really just understanding the risk level of whatever business or industry you're looking to kind of establish, and then that can help you also further determine. So what she just mentioned, I think that's like bang on, right? And I think that really kind of helped me in terms of really understanding, okay, what does it imply from a tax perspective? So thanks for that. Now, maybe going more from tax. Now we've established, okay, tax is not as bad as we kind of make it out to seem, but there are other barriers, right, to successfully growing. So it's one thing setting up a business, it's one thing managing it at base level, but we want to scale up. I know you had mentioned, you had alluded to, some opportunities with scaling up, but what do you consider are barriers to growth? Now, beyond, what you mentioned, I mean, you can definitely, you know, chime in from your experience, but like generally, like what do you consider are like barriers to companies successfully growing, and not just growing by company size, but growing by revenue, profit, you know, even location, right? For instance, if you wanted to establish Shebe, and I think it's global, like you do global shipping, right? To some extent, right? So,
I do actually.
right.
I should toot my own horn. I do.
Right.
But,
so if you maybe wanted to explore opening up a store and then establishing multiple stores in different cities, you know, just growing across board, like what do you consider are like top 2 or 3 barriers that could hinder growth, so that these, you know, the people watching, the audience watching, can also take that into account if they're looking to scale and scale successfully?
I would say the first one is funding. Like, funding is such a big one. Like, for most of the things you mentioned, if I want to set up a physical store, I would have to first of all think of the space. Sometimes, like, I've learned that most things that scales are not as scary as it seems. So you might think, oh my god, it would be so expensive for me to rent a space in Canada. It may not be. Once again, it's a cost that you can incur to your business. Once again, there are opportunities to support businesses. So sometimes doing the research and just try and, you know, go a long way. So funding, because to set up a physical location, I have to think of the space. I have to get staff because I'm not there, you know. So funding goes a long way. In just doing the research to sort of figure out what's available to you. There might be a location you want to actually grow into that has a special program to try to attract entrepreneurs. And if you don't check, you won't know. So it's also keeping that in mind to say, okay, maybe for my first location, let me look for a location that supports businesses. It might not be my ideal location, it's not the best location I have in mind, but checking, is that, do I have a customer base there? Because it's not just about certain location in the area because it's nice. Do I have a customer base there? And also, are there any special programs here to support entrepreneurs? Because there are out there. So that also helps. The second thing I'll say is finding the right team. Like I've said in my specific case, what has held me back in scaling is a fear of, how do I maintain the quality if it's not coming out of my hands, my own kitchen or my own workshop? So it's like, how do I get the right team? But I'm also giving myself grace to say, you've done this for your corporate job. You've set up processes to be able to manage quality, quality control, quality check, so you can do it for your business. And also learn to relinquish control, because for a business to scale, you cannot be a control freak to want to do everything yourself, because you cannot. So it's like, okay, what processes can I put in place to manage the standards and the quality? Because scale with that, it's a big thing. Like for any business to scale, if you're making tea, if you're making food, if you're whatever it is you're doing, even if you're providing a service to hire more people, you have to, okay, how do I create SOPs that they follow? To ensure that, okay, people are coming to cheese marketing firm, but even if it's not cheese that's doing it, everybody else has the same guidelines and structure and will deliver the same level of quality. So that in itself is setting up like those processes. So challenge is like with setting out that time to define the processes and checks and controls to be able to scale with the right team. And then finding the right partners, I would say, for scale. So all the things you mentioned is not a one-man show again. Like if I want to increase my marketing funnel, it's not my area of expertise. I need to be able to reach out to someone that's a marketing professional to say, okay, can you partner with me? Yes. So if I am looking to scale and I want to outsource it to a smaller business or a vendor, can I like trust this person that they will keep their word and be accountable throughout that process? So it's finding the right team goes a long way in that partnership, I would say. Probably a lot more, but those three, I would say funding, finding the right team, and what was my number 2? Partners. Partners.
Suppliers will be counted as partners, right?
Suppliers will be counted as partners as well.
Sounds good. No, that's really critical because even big companies, I know, for some of the companies that I've encountered, there's usually this due diligence process that they undergo before even onboarding a supplier, just to ensure that the quality, whatever, is matched in terms of, okay, have they passed this? Do they have certain ISO? You know, are they qualified? Because ideally, the liability will still come to you. And
Exactly, they don't
so
know
you
them.
have to be
It's you.
exactly.
You're the face of the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if anything happens on that front, just rest assured it's impacting your business as well. So
one more challenge I would say is time. And I'm speaking from the lens of not a full-time business owner, but a part-time business owner. The biggest challenge is time. And I feel like different people at different seasons of their life, you know, have different time capacity versus other times. I would say plant in the seasons that you have that time, because there'll be a season when you won't have that as much time as you would like. So I know I'm speaking heavily to that. Like for me, as an example, the first half of this year has been a mix of reduced time for various reasons, you know, personal reasons versus work-life balance reasons. So it's about, okay, have I planted enough during that time? Okay, even if I can't put in as much time as I was putting in a few months ago, what am I doing each day or each week that is inching me towards my goal, you know, or that scale? So as a person who has both, like for anyone out there who has both, like those seasons where you have the time, put in as much as you can and set up those processes and those systems in place for when your time might reduce.
Absolutely. In fact, you've already started addressing my follow-up question, which is around best practices, you know, that you've sort of experienced over time in terms of really making sure your business, you know, stays afloat. And time cannot be overemphasized, right? Because if it doesn't have your time, your business is as good as dead. So that's definitely a huge barrier for sure. So I couldn't agree more. So maybe we skip the best practices, because I feel like you've kind of touched on best practices over these conversations, and then maybe go to, you know, the common question. So why do businesses fail? Like why are they failing? I mean, realistically, why are they failing? Have you had, you know, businesses, and maybe you can touch on maybe personal experience, maybe some business that you've explored and maybe didn't kind of get it through sort of where you wanted it to be, and what is that point where people need to call it quit and withdraw, like, and how do they, because I know a lot of business owners struggle with that, like they want to just keep pushing, don't worry, we'll get there and manage, and then yada yada yada, and then it ends up impacting your quality, ends up impacting your product and overall, you know. So first is, why do businesses fail, and then where do you get to that sort of deal breaker moment where it's like, okay, it's either we just leave or we just, you know, like how do you even know that that's the moment? Like what gives you that indication that, hey, this is not going anywhere?
Great question. And I, you know, first off, before I forget, I think I just want to say to anyone who has gone through a business that they've had to close, like, I consider you very brave. Because there will be that voice in your head that will let you say, maybe you were weak. Maybe you didn't try hard enough. Maybe that will make you just sort of second guess and like sort of reduce your self-confidence to the point that, maybe I didn't try hard enough. But like, it takes a lot of courage to be able to sit and say, at this juncture, I think it's time, because whatever is ahead, you know, or at this point, just for different reasons, and it's absolutely okay if it's a personal reason, because you don't want to compromise on your quality, like you said, like, you know, whatever that reason is, to take that bold step to say it's his time. It's not an easy journey, and like, if there's anything that's telling you, oh yeah, maybe this, maybe that, pat yourself on the back, and the same you that started out will be able to start a lot more. And looking back at what you've learned.
Very well said.
So I just wanted to say that. And then to your first part of the question about why some businesses fail, I think there's so many factors. Like sometimes it's not that the business itself is not great or it's not still solving a problem. It could be, but it could be, one, it's the wrong season in terms of like, or the wrong timing. There are different things. There are different macro factors in the economy that your business is in that is just fighting you, you know, that you're not able to like sort of breathe. So there's that, you know. If an example of that is, let's say your business is in Nigeria, right? Over the last maybe year in Nigeria, diesel prices have been moving like you know, if for any viewers that are not Nigerian, just like Google, like just do, if you want to learn a bit more about Nigeria, like just, so imagine someone that has a manufacturing business in Nigeria. You wake up today, it's basically like every morning is an opportunity for high blood pressure, because you've taken orders in at a particular cost. While you're still trying to make those orders, your cost has doubled. You know, importing things, because unfortunately a lot of things sometimes in Nigeria that is for manufacturing is imported. you wake up, the currency rate has increased.
Oh yeah.
You know, so hence you're going to your suppliers, they are giving you double the price versus the cost that you used to quote to your customer. So all of those things, and if you're a business that is not heavy in funds, because funds, like, you know, certain businesses require a different level of capital and funds. And if you're a business that is not liquid enough to be able to absorb a lot of that risk to keep your customers, it's just draining you consistently, and wherever your source of fund is coming from you bootstrapping it. It's draining that source consistently with no end in sight, because it's a macro factor.
Right.
So that's one major factor with, like, you know, why some businesses may fail. Second thing is you just have the wrong team, unfortunately.
Right.
It's just, you know, the wrong team. You, for some reason, and sometimes people say, well, that can be fixed. Well, yes, it can. Like, you know, you have the wrong team, but how long have you had that wrong team for?
Right.
And at what point is it, like, you know, is it a case where you've had the wrong team for so long that they've chased away all your customers with bad products?
Oh yeah.
Or it's like, you know, at the early stages where you're able to just take a pause and figure out what you're doing and rehire people and set up process in place. So there's that. I would say, like, most times they fail because of, you know, so many different reasons, and some cases are not, it's not clear cut. There's so many different answers. They could have gotten one big lawsuit against them and they're not able to breathe. They could have hit bankruptcy because they've been constantly drained. So there's that. And then the second part of the question is, when is the point to say it's okay? And I personally went through this with one of my businesses fairly recently, and I struggled with it for the longest time. I struggled with the fact that, okay, first of all, I felt like I was going to let my staff down. I had like about 10 plus people on payroll, and I felt so bad. I felt like, oh wow, I'm putting people out of their jobs, like, you know, and, you know, it had been something that I had tried for such a period of time, and I tried to, like, sustain that, to say, okay, even if the revenue wasn't matching the cost and all of that, finding other ways to augment that.
Right.
But then I thought about it, explored different options. I paused and I sat and I said, have I tried all the things that I can at this time and the knowledge that I have at this time? It doesn't mean that in 2 years, if I want to pick that business up from what are all the things I learned, I wouldn't do it. But at that time, with what was going on in my personal, with everything, at that time, had I done everything I could? And I still struggled to make a decision. And there was a conversation I had with someone who's also a business person, very entrepreneurial, serial businesses. And that's why it's also important to ask questions. Don't suffer in silence. Like, the person I reached out to, like, is someone I had worked with on a few projects, and I was just like, let me just bounce ideas off somebody else, like, that has been through this journey. And I called a few people then, and there was something that has stuck with me till today. And the comment that was made was, you know how people always say, oh, winners never quit, and he was like, no, like, you need to rephrase that to say, winners know when to quit.
Oh yeah.
Like, when you said that, I just paused, and I'm like, if I was advising, like, if I sound like, that is so profound. Like, winners know when to quit. Like, it's not about just going. I'm going to keep going. And quitting, in quotes, could be a break. It could be, okay, at this point, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to reassess where we are as a business and come back in a few months.
Absolutely.
It could be, you know what, I need to pivot. This business as it is and the economy that we're in and what customers need at this time, it does not meet the need. It doesn't align. Or it doesn't meet my values anymore as an individual. I need to pivot to something else. So it's absolutely okay to, like, make that reassessment. And know that as long as you've answered all the questions in your mind to you, and the questions I'm giving might not be things that are important to you, but for me, it was like, have I considered all the things I could do? I just really looking at it, is my conscience clear? Like, so many different things to then make a decision. And just remember that at the end of the day, you might struggle with, oh, did I quit too early, or did I leave too early, or did I take a step back? But just make your decision and stand by it. So that's one thing as a business person. You have to be super bold to take a risk, and also be strong in, like, decision making as well.
Absolutely. That is super well said, and that's a classic example of closed mouth don't get fed. So please, guys, whatever you're facing, it doesn't even have to be as relates to business. In your life, please ask questions. Whatsoever it is, right? Ask questions. And then secondly, like she said, winners know when to quit. Like, I picked that, right? That's in my head now forever. Winners know when to quit. Okay, no, so that, I mean, that could have been, like, well said. Now, let's talk a little bit about weathering pandemic. As much as, yes, this pandemic issue has been overflowed, we can't help but still talk about it, because its impact, its I'd say repercussion we're still living with to date. Things like supply chain, things like, you know, financing and all that good stuff, especially even with the war currently happening. I mean, I know a lot of businesses are taking a hard hit.
Yeah.
We all know that. Inflation is like, you go grocery shopping, I'm sure you know, things you would buy like with $500, you can't get those same things, you know, that same amount with $500 now. So how, in your opinion, would you advise like businesses to stay afloat even amidst these supply challenges, these inflation, you know, moments, you know, things like that? Like, in fact, maybe let's even hold it back to you, like, with regards to share beer and stuff, how are you keeping that momentum with all these external uncontrollable, you know, impacts happening in the background?
Well, basically there are different strategies that one has to take. All the things you mentioned are so real, like from supply chain issues to the cost of ingredients going up, like so many different factors. There are a couple different things, and so depending on whatever product or service that you're offering, there are things, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically people are looking for value. So if, as an example, you're spending a certain amount on a smaller size container and you decide, okay, I want to upsize because people are going to get more products. But for a relatively smaller incremental price, considering like all the different cost factors that are there. So that's something else to consider. Like, what is consumer behavior looking like in this season? In the middle of the pandemic, convenience and accessibility was key. People wanted things like restaurants that were not offering delivery began to offer delivery. Grocery stores that were not delivering started to deliver because it was like, wait, what is my consumer behavior telling me in this season? What are people caring about? You know, so there were companies that started, there were people that started making masks in the middle of the pandemic and made a fortune because they were like, oh, what do people need now? People are making hand sanitizers. Went to a hotel a few weeks ago, you know, for just a little outside of Toronto, really nice location. They were selling hand sanitizers, some really nice hand sanitizers that was like rosemary, natural hand sanitizer with like rosemary fragrance sanitizers. I'm like, I'm sure people were not selling this hand sanitizer before the pandemic. So that's another product that they've added, and I bought one because I like it. I love natural things. It was rosemary. I was like, oh, I really like this. So it's about like staying on top of what is relevant at this point in time. And okay, well, I can't afford to make all 10 products within my SKU. But which ones do I want to focus on? Because I can then put in targeted efforts. I can manage the cost there. I can even further niche down my customer base, you know, in these 2 products and do them really well. And know that, you know, at least my business is still running till that time where like all the other products are now then accessible again. And that's okay. Big companies do that too. Some of these strategies we're saying, it sounds like only like small, you know, businesses, but big companies, if you really look at their strategy playbook sometimes, they leverage these as well to say, okay, what are my top 20%? What are my products that bring my top 20% products that bring 80% of my revenue, and focus on those in that period of time too. So I would say those are some things. I would say like looking at consumer behavior, figuring out, okay, how do I further niche, or what changes do I need to make to my offerings to be able to make things fit better as well. And then also finding like ways to further bring down your cost in the middle of all of this. It's tough. If it's providing a different product that has fewer ingredients, but it's still very important to a certain user group, focusing on that, whatever it may be, just finding ways as well.
No, absolutely. Like you topped it up by just talking about consumer behavior, because nothing beats that. Because at the end of the day, you're making the products for them. So you need to understand what the market needs. And it's an evolving thing. Like what the market can need this month or this quarter can change in the next quarter. So really continuing that exercise, and also re-looking at your playbook as well, I think is, like, you couldn't have said it any better. I think it's really a good way to keep your business afloat amidst, you know, all that's going on. And one other thing I've seen businesses kind of take up, and I personally love it. Like when I go shopping, I've been shopping a lot for the kids, and I'm like, when I see, like, I could see maybe like this one product, assuming like let's use the hand sanitizer you talked about. I could see this hand sanitizer now, and then it's like maybe 30 mil, for instance. And then they now bundle packaging things. So now they would now give me, okay, well, you can pick this 30 mil and this other 2 mil of maybe SPF, and then have it for maybe just maybe $5 more. My dear, I'm so going. I'm I'm an avid like fan of bundle stuff. I'm like, oh, I can get this too for just $5. Let's do it.
It's about
Right?
value. Yeah.
Absolutely. And even though the prices and all that, you can still factor that into the bundles and things like that.
Yes.
So no, that couldn't have been any well said, because like I know my needs keep changing because I now want more for whatever price I'm willing to spend.
And something very interesting to that piece from a delivery perspective as well is that you realize, like for me as an e-commerce business, let's say she orders 1 tub of a product, her shipping cost might be the same as opposed to her ordering 2.
Exactly.
And then, but to her, she's like, I'm only ordering this one. And that's another thing. One bigger challenge I didn't say as a small business is posts in Canada. It is super expensive for an e-commerce business compared to like our counterparts in the US. So those bundle ideas come into play as well to say, okay, what's the threshold? Because sometimes you know how shipping rates are charged. Like it's okay from 25 to X number, which could maybe fit in a few more items. Maybe if you reduce the size and increase like 2 more, people like that value to say, okay, well, it makes sense. I'm paying $7 for 1 product, but I'm also paying $7 for 2.5. So technically it's like $3 per item. So people like hearing things like that. So the whole idea of bundling, upsizing, there's a term, I saw it somewhere recently in a retail knowledge book or something, or magazine, but I can't remember what it's called. But those are some strategies. And find ways to bring down your shipping cost if you're an e-commerce business. It's been a major challenge for me as well. So
companies are doing even Shein, even Temu, like all these sort of e-commerce sites. You see that when you spend maybe $80, you get like free shipping and stuff like that. So I think just creating that value from a customer perspective while still not affecting sort of your business in any way, I think would be great. Also, let's even talk while we're talking about that. Let's talk about, so while you mentioned e-commerce, let's talk about putting your business out there. So beyond, I know you mentioned pop-ups, but are you also exploring sort of marketplaces? Because I know digital is the way to go, especially since digital is the new norm. Since pandemic and post-pandemic is the future. So if your business isn't online, it's almost like as good as dead, right? So, and you also mentioned skill. So I know you have your e-commerce platform, but I know with certain e-commerce platforms, they also leverage marketplace in terms of having your products visible. Like you mentioned, people need to see, like you need a wider reach. Having your products visible across all the sites that might be better or have more sort of audience size. Sites like Amazon, sites like Shopify, you can still have a strategy that leads that product back to your own e-commerce site. Something called drop shipping, where they click to show interest with your product, and then they just send you a notification, and then you do the fulfillment and things like that. So there's so many strategies for that. But is that something that you reckon a small or medium-sized business should employ, from a digital perspective, or you feel like owning your own e-commerce and just managing from your e-commerce platform is the way to go? Are there pros and cons to it?
Yes, there are pros and cons. I'm just going to say there are pros and cons. One of the major pros is the number of eyes, like, very, very different traffic. Associated with that, of course, are the fees that come with that. So it's looking at what strategy will make sense for me to still provide visibility through those marketplaces. So I would recommend that whoever going into that is definitely a good idea. Just doing the research on here's the product, and they're very great at telling you, okay, if this is the price of your product, here's how much will come to you at the end. So going into that research to look at okay, what product is best to list here at what time, what is my goal, different things like that is really critical.
But going back to the truths and the myths, right? So with every conversation, I always want to clear the air with setting assumptions, because we all make assumptions coming into things. So what have you realized has been different than what you expected coming or being sort of a business owner or an entrepreneur in general?
Well, a couple of things. There are a lot of resources out there. Like, I have learned that there's no excuse. I really learned that, especially if you really want to get something, if you want to get funding, there's no excuse. Like the availability of resources out there to be able to learn whatever you need to learn, to be able to manage your business successfully. But then it then comes back to, I can do everything, but should I do everything? So there's that piece as well. I think I've learned that as well, to say, okay, sometimes different personalities, different people types. If you're someone who's like multi-skilled, you sometimes run into the trap of, oh yeah, I'll do it. Is it not just to arrange my custom? I can do it. Is it not, these people are charging me this amount for this app, I will use Excel, use Google Sheets. So sometimes it's about, okay, how do you balance of where do I get the biggest bang for my buck when it comes to my time as well? It's something that I would say. So that assumption of, oh yeah, I can do it. It's not so it's not as straightforward. Like there are a lot of things you should leverage. Yeah.
2 more questions and we're done, guys. I promise you. So one is, as a business owner, right? What keeps you up at night? And follow up to that, which is the second question, is balance. So we've talked a lot about balance, but we really want to know. And I've seen people who own businesses and are managing it full time. Yeah. And there's people like you who is running a 9-to-5, even with leading teams. And as well, running businesses, and of course managing the home front, and all the other things, family, personal life, and all that. How are you able to balance your time? How are you able to manage such that one is not suffering more than the other? How are you able to determine, okay, I need a break? And when you take a break, do you, like, for instance, if you go on vacation from your work, do you then spend that vacation working and preparing, your products? Or is it like you're taking vacation from everything to reboot and look after yourself and then come back, right? So these are 2 questions. The first is, what keeps you up at night, right? And it could still be balancing, right? That could be something that keeps you up at night. But I'm curious to know, right? And this is as relates to your business, right? Nothing else.
Balancing keeps me up at night. Not feeling like I'm not doing enough keeps me up at night. And I'll say I've gotten better. I've developed a bit of a thicker skin when it comes to it, but I think it's important that still keeps me up at night, because that's what keeps me going, especially when you're managing both. So it's basically saying, okay, have I done enough? Like, have I really done enough? So it's a very tough balance, because I've been that individual where I'll be on vacation, but that time it's like, okay, so this vacation I'm going to use to do this, and I come out of that vacation feeling not rested. So what is the point of that? So it's like, okay, but then it's about finding a balance, still saying, okay, well, I'm going on vacation for 10 days. Can I put 2 of those 10 days towards my business? Because I know I have the most time now. That's one. I've employed different strategies for balancing. So I've sort of segued into the second question, like balancing and all. I think having an amazing support system is great. I know not everybody has a, supportive husband. I don't have the supportive husband association. So it's like, but do you have friends that are like, I've had some of my friends literally call me and say, what are you doing today? Like, and it means the world to me. So I have friends who would say, you're at a pop-up, okay, I'll come and spend the day with you. Let me come and visit you, we'll make sure we're together. Just assign me what tasks to work on. Like, even like when my brother comes, my mom, my parents are around, it's like, okay, what can I help you do with this your business today? So leveraging that, like knowing that no man is an island. Like, especially for people that find it tough to ask for help, you just, as you said, closed mouths don't get fed. Like, just saying, okay, like, swallow your pride and say, oh, please, I need help here. Like, I need help in this. I'm sinking. So I think that goes a long way. Like, that has helped me a lot to sort of say, okay, I'm not alone. Even the times when you feel like, oh, I'm all by myself, you're not alone. Like, just finding the right people, and you'll be surprised how much strangers also want to help you. Wow. If it's with information as well, like, you'll be surprised. Like, I met this lady that makes really, really good chin and stuff, and I had seen her work and I follow her on Instagram, and I noticed like she would go to somewhere to like prepare, she would bulk produce, and I would watch her strategy. She started at home and now she's making like boxes, like towers of products, and I'm like, I saw a video where she went somewhere to like a rented kitchen. So I think there's a term for them, like all these kitchens that you can rent and pay by the hourly rate. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind that, because for me, one of the things with scaling is I've been hesitant to bring strangers into my home. So, okay, if I'm able to rent this, so different ideas, it just gives you ideas as you speak to people. Of course, not everyone will be open, but, don't let that stop you from still asking people. And all. So, and also hearing a lot of people are side hustlers, as we call it, a lot of people, so it's becoming more and more common, and I think it picked up even more during the pandemic, because people needed something to stay sane with.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, with inflation, with prices going up, your salary isn't going up as
exactly.
well. So I mean,
it's to find myself message. It's so interesting. So, but I'd say it's not an easy journey. Like I got to admit, sometimes it's easy to see all the glitz and glamour sometimes of some entrepreneurs and say, oh, they're looking. No, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, a lot of tears, a lot of sweats. So it's just being consistent. I think the biggest thing for even myself that keeps me up is staying consistent. Like, Yvonne, don't give up. Like, stay consistent. It's easy to say I'm exhausted, I don't want to do anything, but stay consistent. Like, you know, figure out ways, strategies. Like, sit down and think and like make out the time from my work, because sometimes work consumes us because there's so much. It's like, okay, what time am I doing? And you have other responsibilities. You have a home, you have family, you have other life commitments, you know, you have other people, you have friends and family that you want to also spend time with. So just staying consistent.
Absolutely, and I can very well relate to that. But yeah, any sort of words to close that you'd like to?
Yeah, so you said two things. I'll pick two. So the first one is do your research, ask questions, reach out to people. I suffer from the symptom of like, oh, I can do it now, it's not so. But I learned with Shebe, when I started up Shebe, I actually reached out to a business coach. And I reached out because I was just like, you know what, like, you can't, you're very arrogant to think you know it all. So like, so I reached out to the person and she gave me so much wisdom and like a lot of insights, the encouragement, just knowing, okay, here's where you go for this is what you should do, this is what you should think of, you should reach out to this vendor, explore this. She gave me a lot of tips and tricks that built my confidence to start. So I would recommend, like, if you're fortunate enough to do a lot of that research on your own, by all means, go ahead. You know, not everybody might be able to afford a business coach. You know, you can do that research. You can reach out to people who are accessible and willing to share their experiences with you. So I'd say that's very critical. Don't go in blind, because you will be shocked. You know, to just hit you out of nowhere. And even some things that have failed in the past, like other businesses, I feel like that was also that having that foundation of having a network of people that have done what you're trying to do goes a very long way. And then the second thing I'll say, especially if you're a side hustler, is to rest. Is to rest and to plan your life, like plan your work-life business balance well. You know, there was a season where for me, I was literally making Shebe almost every evening, almost every weekend, and it wasn't sustainable. So I looked at it and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't work for me. So okay, I will pick each month, this is my production weekend, and I know that weekend I'm not committing to any outings, no brunch, no birthday, no, just, you know, if I'm going to have a birthday, I will plan it around, okay, maybe it's during the idle time of my production that I will go, sort of plan it out in advance, because I realized it wasn't sustainable, and also from like a rest and also health being wealth. So I would say, like, always keep that at the top of your mind, and ensuring that you are feeding your body, you're feeding your soul, because if you know, God forbid anything happens to you, life will go on. You have the responsibility to take care of you. So I would say, like, those two things. If someone is thinking of setting up a business, to, like, you know, do the research, put in the work early on, and ask questions, reach out to people. And also as you start, because the beginning will be the toughest part, always think about like your rest and how you're feeding yourself too.
I love it. I love it. No, thank you so very much for that. Like I said, guys, there's definitely so much that we can put into this content, but I for one have learned a lot, and I really hope that you guys have as well, and you guys have also been encouraged by this video to push forward, take that leap. If you've been planning this for a while and you've been hesitating or reluctant, please go for it, establish it, you know, do your research like she said, and basically just keep consistency. Like, you know, ask questions, you know, just don't be an island, right? So in summary of everything that she's mentioned, I really hope you caught that. Like she said as well, rest is very important. Health is your wealth. Yes, we want to make all the money in the world, but what will that be if you don't have good health to actually enjoy the world?
Exactly.
Okay, guys. So thank you so much for watching. Really, thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you. This was so fun.
I know.
I enjoyed it.
I was trying to
be back again. Like,
so
well done to you. Like, I'm so proud of you for what she's doing. Like, you know,
like when you were talking about balance, you were just clicking in my head, especially even with having a new baby. You can't even, you wouldn't even imagine when I edit. Like, I edit when I'm carrying baby at night, because I do night shift. So it's like in the middle of the night, I'm like carrying baby, baby's breastfeeding, and I'm editing and stuff. But I just keep going because I mean, That's all we could do. Exactly.
I'm proud of you. Inspiring me.
By the way, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And please, if you enjoyed this video, do well to leave a thumbs up, comment, let us know what you'd like us to do. If you wanted us to talk about, maybe elaborate more on taxes or anything like that, please just let us know. And like you heard, she's looking for a tax specialist. So guys, apply within. Apply within, okay? Alright, thank you so much guys. Take care.